Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the relatively rare Fire Dragon-type Pokemon Turtonator, the Blast Turtle Pokémon. Massive on both sides in bulk, and more than able to take a physical blow, Turtonator are fascinating beasts that make the most of their solid defenses to take the brunt of nearly anything thrown at them.
Turtonator have the form of a large bipedal turtle with grayish-beige arms and legs, the former having a pair of digits for manipulating objects, and the latter having red trimmed flat-bottomed crimped feet, as well as a long neck and brown eyes with a yellow-rimmed tubular snout, craggy mouth, and a large flat head crest that sits on them like a hat, complete with a red, yellow, and brown-rimmed barbed exterior. The majority of their body is housed in a massive shell with a red belly and semi-star-shaped yellow-rimmed hole, their back having a series of red and yellow layers with brown and red spike protrusions on its surface made from processed sulfur and other explosive chemicals. Turtonator are unique creatures in that, while completely land dominant in terms of habitats, they are still classified as turtles because they can survive just as well in the water as on land. The only difference, of course, is the fact that these creatures make their homes not in water, but in lava within volcanoes. As a result, their bodies are heavily tempered against the effects of extreme heat, and are highly resistant to damage from fire-type attacks. They are also strikingly different in that they naturally have the power to channel draconic energy through their bodies, and in turn share damage characteristics associated with the dragon type, and are classified as such, though the only dragon type attack they learn naturally is Dragon Pulse, which has led to some to speculate that the dragon type powers are a vestigial trait from an ancestor that simply never became enough of a problem regarding survivability to be weeded out completely. These beasts feed primarily on sulfur ores, both in form of sustenance and defense, as they are able to convert the rock material the sulfur is contained in readily into the energy they need to survive, while getting vital nutrients and minerals from small prey items and rocks found around their habitat. Although these creatures can break down the rock material that contains the sulfur and digest it readily, the sulfur itself is not something they are actually designed to handle. As a result, they have to get rid of it somehow, and choose to do so by excreting it into the shell that completely covers their back. This heavy spiked shell limits the mobility of these creatures a great deal, but this trade-off is fine for them, as their shell is incredibly dense and capable of taking the brunt of powerful attacks without suffering as much as a scratch, which is reflected in their possession of shell armor as their only base ability. In reality, enemies would be best warned to stay away from the shells of these creatures, as the spines are loaded with the sulfur that they ingest and excrete, and render the shell so chemically unstable that the slightest bit of forceful contact can be enough to set it off, causing the shell to detonate in a monstrous explosion. This does not damage the shell, however, and the triggering does not deplete much of the sulfur contained within it, in turn allowing these creatures to abuse this as a defense deterrent against attack. This is also the source of power for the signature shell trap attack, as they can inject large amounts of sulfur into the spine to the back as a trap, and when the opposition uses a move that makes direct contact, it will set off the explored explosive charge, dealing immense damage in the process, while leaving Turtonator completely unharmed by the blast. Needless to say, getting near these creatures is rarely a good idea, and caution is recommended at all times, as even the droppings of these creatures are known to have explosive properties. In the wild, these creatures will hunt prey by disguising themselves as a rock, and hiding near places where small prey items are commonly found. Once a potential meal comes close enough and is not directly looking at them, Turtonator will swing their tail upwards and slam it onto the edge of the shell forcefully, generating a small explosion that will stun the prey if not kill it, and make it easy for Turtonator to finish it off. This can make them a serious threat therefore to other lifeforms in their territory, but it is noted that these creatures are not completely invulnerable. In order for them to use any fire-type attack aside from Shell Trap, these beasts need a lot of oxygen to ignite the flammable gases contained in their bodies, as they lack true combustion organs, and the draconic energy inside them acts as little more than an accelerant in the ensuing reaction, and thus have an inhalation port on their stomach that they use to rapidly inject oxygen into their bodies to fuel and speed up the combustion process. This port is also the reason why these creatures are generally bipedal in their motions, as having the port fully exposed to the air maximizes the volume of air they can draw oxygen from. Unfortunately, Turtonator have to battle most opponents with their backs turned to them, as direct damage to this inhalation port will cause them a great deal of pain and severely hamper their ability to use fire-type attacks, again not counting Shell Trap. Moreover, the inhalation port can also act to snuff out their ability to use fire-type attacks if too much moisture is drawn into the body through it, forcing the creatures to seek silent shelter on rainy days. It is lastly noted that these creatures tend to exhale toxic gases from the nostrils after using a fire-type attack in order to cleanse themselves of excess reactants from combustion, and their droppings contain the same explosive properties as their shells and can be used as an alternative to gunpowder or for some other explosive purpose if needed. As far as their combat abilities go, however, these creatures are suitably lacking in most areas, and especially known for having limited stamina and an inability to move very fast. But at the very least, their shows provide them tremendous physical defenses, and thus have an above-average base defense stat for a fully evolved Fire and Dragon-type Pokemon, further having the highest base defense stat out of all Dragon-type Pokemon, so they aren't totally without merit in battle.
As far as I'm concerned, these massive beasts aren't likely to win any beauty pageants in the future, but they don't really need to look all that lovely when they can just blow up in the faces of those that get too close to them to just be fine afterwards. While they can get access to some interesting offenses as they grow and develop, by and large there is little getting around the fact that their shell is the primary attribute of their form that stands out the most. Not only does it have a cool blast-like design to it, not that different from what you'd see in old cartoons, which makes me wonder if there's a connection there, but the fact that it's primed and ready to blow at a moment's notice can really make it hard to approach these creatures and deal with them safely. I don't usually condone the removal of some Pokemon from their habitats, but given how dangerous these creatures can potentially be to others, I'd say that you give them a wide berth and avoid them if you can, as only strong special attacks are likely to be able to deal with them and leave their attackers unscathed in the process.
Craggy in both form and personality, and more than able to scorch those that get too close to them, Turtonator are potent creatures that have a good trick up their sleeve to anyone that tries to get even close to them to attack. They might not all be that great when it comes to handling frontal assaults, but that's just something you'll have to take into account if you want to best these defensive Pokemon at their strongest.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure to stay out of the blast radius if they decide to really go off. The explosion that falls from the shell trap attack might be a sight to see, but that might not matter much if you can't see anything after your face is blown off from getting too close of a look at the results.
Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.